Hi everyone, thank you for attending today. My name is Sean Stevens and I'm from an organisation called Oxford GWAS, and we run academic summer programmes in Cambridge and Oxford during the summer. But today I'm here to talk to you about applying to university. I understand from your teacher that most of you are thinking about applying to universities in the UK. So the advice that I'm going to be talking to you today about will predominantly focus upon applying to universities in the UK, but a lot of the advice I'll be giving is transferable as well to applying to universities in the US or any other countries as well. So I graduated from Oxford a few years ago, and since then I've helped hundreds of students achieve their aims. So I think this presentation will help to distill a lot of that information into, there's a few slides talking about how to choose your university that you want to apply to, how to choose your degree, and then talking about how you can craft a persuasive personal statement to maximize your chance of success at the application stage. So first of all, a show of hands, how many of you know which universities you'd like to apply to? Okay, so just a few of you. Within the UK, how many of you have heard of the Russell Group? Okay, so quite a few of you as well. So the Russell Group is the group of 24 universities in the UK, which are generally regarded as a leading university in the UK due to their research, student satisfaction, and other metrics. And within that group you have Oxbridge, so Oxford University, and Cambridge University. So these are useful starting points when thinking about which are the sort of more, or like regarded as the more academically elite universities within the UK. But as the next slide will show, there's 109 universities in the UK and over 9,000 universities in the world. So there's a huge degree of choice out there. There's a few questions that you'll want to bear in mind when you're thinking about which university you want to apply to. So first off, how well renowned is the university? Not only in general, but also perhaps specifically for the courses that you want to study. So for example, some universities are particularly well known for the sciences. In London, for example, there's the London School of Economics, which is particularly well known for, particularly highly regarded for economics. So you're really going to want to have a look at the different league tables out there and sort of assess which of the universities are correct for you and which measures you place more importance on. So for example, you might want to think about what past or current students think of the university that you'd like to attend, and whether you have any special interests or extracurricular activities that you tend to do. So for example, universities like Loughborough, for example, are really well known for sports. Cambridge is well known for its Footlight Society, which is comedic society. Other universities will have a whole range of different clubs and special interests that you can explore during your spare time outside of the classroom. On top of that, you've also got to be mindful of what your existing academic qualifications are and whether those match up to the expectations of the universities that you'd like to apply to. So within the UCAS application process, you have 5 choices of universities. Generally, we would advise putting one or perhaps 2 of those as aspirational choices which may be a little bit even beyond what your current academic level is, but could be a really nice sort of choice to get if you actually manage to exceed your expectations in the exams that you do. And then 1 or 2 safe choices. So these are choices of universities that match your current academic level. And then 1, or depending on the numbers that you've chosen for the previous universities, 1 or 2 insurance choice universities, which are there to basically ensure that even if you achieve less than what you wanted to in your exams, you're still able to attend. But it's important to say for the insurance choices, make sure that you select a university that you'd actually be happy to go to. There's no point putting an insurance choice which you're not happy to go to, only to find out that when you do get your results, you want to wait a whole another year before you apply again. And lastly, are you interested in any particular graduate opportunities? Certain universities or certain industries are very well known for recruiting from certain universities, so you'll want to have a look at that as well. Moving swiftly on to which course you should choose, check out the Complete University Guide. This is a really informative resource for students to discover not only different universities available in the UK, but also the different degrees available within those universities. Gain first-hand experience of the course by attending open days at the university, by attending conferences, by attending summer schools. Do try to find out what the course is like at university level, because often what you're studying at school will differ to what you're studying at university. So go onto the university website and check out the degree page of the degree that you'd like to study, and perhaps read the summaries of the different topics that are taught. Then also think about what you enjoy studying the most, because ultimately this is something that you're going to be studying for the next 3, 4, in the case of medicine, 6 years of your life. So you're going to want to make sure that you at least have an interest in it that will carry you through your academic career. Think about what your academic strengths are, and then lastly think outside the box. So at school you're often given just a rigid choice of subjects to study, but there's many different subjects that you can study at university level. So you can choose, for example, to study law, you can choose to study engineering, international relations, subjects that typically aren't offered in A-levels or IB, but can present a very interesting option for students at university. So for example, if you're a very creative person, or you're into writing, don't just consider the choices that you're studying in your IB at the moment. Try to look outside the box and for courses that align with those interests. Once you've decided which universities you'd like to apply to and which degrees you'd like to apply to as well, it's time to start thinking about what you need to do in order to apply. And I think it's really great that your teacher has arranged this presentation at this stage in January, where you've still got months to go, in fact a year to go until you have to apply through the official UCAS deadline. So it's never too early to start planning. For UCAS for the UK, I think the deadline is January the 15th, or if you're applying to Oxbridge, it's October the 15th. You'll also want to consider which admissions tests you might have to take for the courses that you are applying for. So for example, if you're applying to do law within the UK, you'll have to study for the law national admissions test, or for medicine for the BMAT or the UK CAT. And for certain subjects, particularly for Oxbridge, you'll have to sit for the thinking skills assessment. So these admissions tests are separate to the exams that you're currently taking, and usually they want to examine your aptitude for a particular subject. And the best way to excel in these tests is to practice them, to go over past example questions, and to really understand what the tests are requiring of you in order to maximize your chances of success. Of course, as well, it's never too early to start further reading around the subjects that you'd like to study. Start asking your teachers for recommendations for books to read, for articles to read, maybe perhaps even videos to watch, which will help expand your knowledge of the subject outside of the classroom. So one of the most important aspects of the UCAS application process is the personal statement. And just think of it as a useful differentiator for admissions officers who are trying to decide between candidates who are equally as qualified. They need to see, through reading this piece, they can hopefully differentiate why you might be a better candidate or might be more deserving of a place than another equally qualified candidate on paper. So, as I said, it can be an important differentiator, and for universities that interview you, it can also be a useful platform for which to launch their interview questions. So you're going to want to make this document as concise and as persuasive and as reflective of your personal achievements as possible. So, when should you start writing the personal statement? We say that it's never too early to at least start thinking about the personal statement. What I recommend you all do is, if you use a notebook, or if you perhaps use, for example, like Google Documents, set up a document or a notebook where you jot down your ideas relating to your personal statement. Because ultimately you'll have a huge number of articles or books that you've read, or lectures that you've attended, or videos you've listened to, or experiences that have formed your interest in that subject over the years. So perhaps have a brainstorm at first. Think about the different achievements that you've done throughout your life, which best place you to study this subject. And through the course of brainstorming, through the course of thinking about this over the course of weeks or months, you might even discover that you ought to be applying to a different course. So it's also a useful exercise in sort of really figuring out why you want to study that subject and whether that subject is right for you. So through jotting down all these ideas, bear in mind that you're not going to be using all of them. I think often one of the worst mistakes that you can make in the personal statement is to simply list loads of different things that you've done or read without really thinking about which of those would be best elaborated upon to basically craft the final statement. So by the time you start writing it, you should have a clear idea as to what you want to study and why you want to study it. And ultimately be able to sort of sell yourself in a way to the ambitious tutors who are going to be reading those statements. Don't leave it until the last minute. There are a couple of technicalities for the personal statement. They're limited to either 4,000 characters or 47 lines of 95 characters. So this is a very concise document. It's typically only one page of A4, and really, as I'm sure you guys already know, that's an incredibly short document through which to sort of stuff in everything that you would like to, and everything that you think would satisfy the requirements of the degrees that you're applying to. So questions to ask yourself throughout. The first two are obvious: what do you want to study? Why do you want to study it? And thirdly, so what interests, what personal qualities of yours, what achievements and experience support your application to study that subject at university level? So if you ask those questions consistently whilst you're writing the personal statement, you should hopefully be able to come up with something that really illustrates why you want to study that subject at university. We often get asked what structure to follow during the personal statement, and we would always encourage students to focus upon academic achievements rather than extracurricular activities. Whilst it's great that while it's great that students can be well-rounded, play musical instruments, participate in sports teams, ultimately, especially for quite academically focused universities, they really want to just know why you're good at that particular subject and what interest you have in that subject. A biology tutor at university is not really going to be too concerned with whether you played on the school football team or whether you sort of participated in an orchestra. Those are all great things in terms of showing your commitment to a particular activity. But I would say focus the vast majority of your personal statement on academically related things. So typically about 80% of the space talking about your course and why you want to study it, and 20% on other extracurricular activities. But if your subject is vocational, such as medicine, then perhaps you'd want to focus a little bit more on the extracurricular things that you do outside, which sort of demonstrate those soft skills that are required in a vocational subject like medicine. But ultimately, don't feel the need to stick blindly to a formula. If you think that you've got a piece of writing that works, that when your peers, when your teachers read it, ultimately think it's a really interesting piece, then don't be afraid to use that as your structure. Well, I think the second point on this slide is one of the most important. What have you done outside the syllabus that you're studying in school to demonstrate your interest? They don't, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that admissions tutors don't just want to know that you can memorize and regurgitate a textbook. They are more interested in how you pursue the interest in that subject outside of the classroom. So whether that's through actively reading books or articles or attending lectures, try to demonstrate activities that show that you're thinking about the subject in perhaps a different way. And if you are going to undertake work experience, undertake relevant work experience to the courses that you'd like to study. It's also good to include what aspect of the course that you're studying interests you. So perhaps pick a field or two fields that you've read about and that you'd like to really develop your interest and knowledge in at university level. And I think that could be a really useful hook to demonstrate that you've actually got a genuine interest in the subject. If you're planning on taking a gap year, then you should perhaps cover why you're taking that gap year and what you're going to be doing during that gap year, and justify it to the admissions tutor. For certain subjects like science-related subjects like mathematics or physics, that gap year can often be viewed as lost time or lost experience. So you're going to perhaps want to justify what you're going to do during that gap year to sort of keep up the momentum and keep up your level within the subject that you're applying to. So a few do's and don'ts. Don't forget that it's a statement about yourself. It's not a statement about the subject. The person who's going to be reading this essay has probably, knows probably an infinitely greater amount about the subject than you do. So when you do discuss the subject, always place it in the context of talking about yourself and your own achievements and your own interests. If you're applying to universities that require that you take an interview for admissions, then only put things that you're prepared to talk about in an interview scenario. Don't write about books that you haven't read and then sort of become quite stumped when it gets to the interview level. And if you have realistic long-term career plans, then you feel free to put this. But don't put career plans in there just because you think it's going to influence the decision on your application. So as I said in the slide before, just talk briefly about what you do outside school if it's not directly related to the subject that you want to study. And last of all, keep paragraphs concise. So firstly, also paragraph. The number of personal statements I've seen where students will write just an endless list of things in just one continuous block of text is alarming. So make sure that each paragraph has a clear aim as well. So don't be afraid of detail. So don't skim over multiple achievements. Try to concentrate on just like 2 or perhaps 3 achievements and flesh those out and elaborate upon them, rather than sort of just going for a laundry list of different achievements. So don't exaggerate, lie or show off. I think that will come off quite badly for you. And lastly, don't plagiarize your statement, because obviously those are run through plagiarism software once they're submitted. When writing your personal statement, I'm not sure how you will end up doing it, but we generally advise writing it in sort of a traffic light system where you have 3 drafts of your personal statement, and at each stage of the traffic light system, you're trying to create the best possible draft of the statement, so that you're not just continuously evolving this document without any clear sort of aims or progress stops throughout the journey. So first of all, write the first draft of your personal statement, which will be your red draft, and have that reviewed by your teacher and by your peers and get their thoughts on it. This can obviously exceed the word count, but it should sort of flesh out the ideas that you'd like to talk about, so that afterwards you can sort of cross out the ones that you don't think you're ultimately going to pursue, and then mark out the ones that you'd want to elaborate in further detail. And then it goes to amber draft, where it's another round of editing, and then finally, hopefully after the third draft of editing, you've got a personal statement that you feel comfortable submitting through UGWAS. At every stage, get people to check it. It's always useful to get different perspectives, either from your parents, from your classmates, from your tutors, as to what they think of the ideas that you've presented in that document, but also to check for things like spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So just a few more top tips. So in terms of what you're going to be doing outside of the classroom, don't just try to think outside the box and try to be original. So if you think you want to apply to do business or economics, don't just read The Economist or the Financial Times, or say that you've read them, because that's what almost every candidate does. Try to find some interesting topics that you're interested in, or interesting books about a particular niche within economics. That's going to make your personal statement stand out from the crowd. So lastly, try to avoid things like flowery language. So keep it simple and concise. It's best to show that you're intelligent, or that you're able to be critical, or that you're able to write well through varying the sentence structure, through not through using a thesaurus and trying to come up with more interesting words to say the same thing. Try to avoid sort of exaggerative language, like if you've always been interested in a particular subject, because it's a waste of words, and ultimately you want to be talking about specific experiences rather than sort of general sort of phrases like that. So try to make sure that there's a narrative to your personal statement, and try to make it flow in between the different paragraphs. So make an easy way to make sure that at sort of a very basic level your structure is making sense is to check whether sort of the purpose of the paragraph is clear through the beginning and the end of the paragraph. So so now after having gone through some sort of general points about what to look for or what to watch out for when you're writing your personal statement, I'd like to go through a few examples. So first off, this is written by Rachel. She's a student who's applying to do medicine at university, and it's just a short extract from her personal statement. So could you guys take a couple of minutes to read this, and then perhaps tell me, I'll ask you what you think is good about this extract, and then what you think could be improved about the statement as well. Okay, does anyone want to volunteer their opinion about you?
I mean, she says specific stuff that she got the prize for the biochemistry essay that she did, and she said that she worked for weeks in elderly home.
So she's shown that she's sort of achieved things within the subject that she'd like to study within medicine, and she's shown that she's developed an interest in a particular field of medicine. But what perhaps could be improved about this extract?
Is it really necessary for you to mention the viola and how she was in the senior orchestra? I don't think that's relevant to her subject.
Yeah, or at least it definitely shouldn't be in this paragraph here. So sorry, what was your name?
Tia.
So Tia just mentioned that within this particular extract, Rachel has mentioned the fact that she's participates in the senior orchestra and that she works with a peer support mentor. Perhaps being a peer support mentor might be more relevant to a medicine degree, but definitely in terms of thinking about how best to structure the statement, things like achievements like playing in the senior orchestra should be placed in a different paragraph. So there's quite a few more examples that I could go through here. I just want to talk about about applying for universities which require that you sit for an interview. So when you're preparing for an interview, you want to think about your coming across as passionate and interested in the subject that you would like to apply to do. So when you get invited to an interview stage, they're really looking at whether they could teach you for 3 or 4 years of your undergraduate degree. So the most important thing to do in the interview scenario, or to practice for an interview scenario, is to practice. And not only to just practice with your friends or your parents, because those are people who are familiar with you already, but to practice with people who are more experienced than you and people who you don't necessarily know. So perhaps tutors or teachers in another subject, or friends that you've, or really not good friends of yourself. So you're putting yourself in the scenario which mimics an interview situation where you won't know the person who's going to be discussing the subject with you. Make sure that you read your personal statement multiple times before the interview, and make sure that you also know the experiences or books that you've talked about inside out. Review any work that you've submitted prior to the interview. Often universities like Oxford or Cambridge will ask you to submit a couple of essays beforehand, which might be used as a basis for discussion during the interview. And most importantly, during an interview scenario, vocalize your thought process. Often it's not important whether you arrive at the right answer, but more that your logic or rationale makes sense. So as it says here, they might not care about whether you actually give the correct answer, but want to see that the way that you think about a particular problem, the way that you analyze or critically assess a scenario. So lastly, I just want to talk about our, I understand we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to talk about the academic summer programs that we offer in Cambridge and also in Oxford. So these are 2-week academically focused summer programs intended to give an insight into what you'd like to study at university level. So students can choose up to 2 subjects to study for the duration of the 2-week program and learn about this subject in small groups with the guidance of expert tutors from Cambridge and Oxford as well. So let's show you a short video with participants talking about the program.
Staying in a Cambridge college was really different. It was nothing I'd really expected. I thought it was absolutely great that I got to experience something like this for the first time, and it's really given me a feel of the university.
Staying in a Cambridge college has been very unique, very special.
The campus in itself is really beautiful, and I really appreciate it coming from a big city like Zurich. It's a nice change.
Staying in the college in Cambridge University was really interesting because it's a lot different to the architecture that I'm used to where I come from, so it was great to experience new things and I love it.
So it's been great before applying for university to be able to know what it's really like to live in such a beautiful city like Cambridge.
Every college is a little bit different, and that it's not just a picture, it's reality, and that we put something to it.
Sorry, yes, I just realized that was a wrong video. But anyway, moving on. The program focuses upon developing your knowledge outside of the classroom in small groups, providing insights beyond the school curriculum that you're currently studying. So you'll be taught to engage with the subject and really try to understand the subject beyond sort of the textbook level stuff that you'll be learning within the IB scenarios. There are 15 different subjects to choose from, and tutorials which always have less than 10 students per class are the opportunity to engage with the subject with the guidance of the tutor and with also your peers who are similarly motivated students who want to learn more about the subject at university level. That's complemented by university preparation workshops, so personal statement workshops, interview skills workshops, and admissions test workshops. And a whole range of extracurricular activities that take place in the afternoon and on the weekend. So if you'd like to find out more information about the program that we have to offer, then you may do so. Sorry, I forgot to mention that students also reside within colleges or the university. If you'd like to find out further information, then please feel free to have a look at our websites, cambridgeimmerse.com or oxbridgeimmerse.com. Just to round up, if you have any questions relating to the first portion of the presentation today about applying to university and sort of maximizing your chances of success, now's your opportunity to do so. If you have, I'm not sure whether you have some time before your next class, or you're welcome to email us on inquiries@oxbridgeimmerse.com as well.
Okay, so we've got just under 10 minutes if anyone's got any questions you want to ask. Grade 11 will be meeting this afternoon to start actually thinking about personal statements. Not having to write one today, but just to follow up on this, to start thinking about how you can go about beginning to write your personal statement. So now's the time to ask any questions.
How do you apply to the summer schools?
Sorry, just on that, I had to rush through this portion of the presentation, sorry, because I thought we had less time. But just go onto the website and there's an online enrollment form there as well. If you'd like, if you don't have any other questions, I could go through some of the previous examples of personal statements and things that helpful pointers to write them as well. So. So, for example, if you'd like to read this extract from a personal statement from a student who'd like to study English literature, what they do really well here is explain what they find interesting, or actually give their own interpretation about the subject. And I think that's a really advanced thing to be able to do, to sort of be able to deconstruct what the subject means to them. So, for example, here the student talks about English literature and talks about the subject as an exercise in deconstructing text to better understand the decisions authors make about language. So it's really great that that not only the student here isn't simply sort of discussing what the subject is, but what the subject means to them. And I think that sort of personal aspect can be something that's really intriguing for the admissions tutors. Does anyone have any questions about this? Or perhaps things that you think could be improved about it? No? Let's talk about integrating work experience, because I think this is something that a lot of students struggle with their personal statements. Either writing about personal work experience which isn't relevant, or unsure of how to actually integrate work experience into the personal statement and into sort of writing about why they would be best placed to study that subject. So it's easier for something like medicine in this case, but at the same time, the student here shows that shows what they think the work experience gave them in terms of why they think the personal statement makes them a better candidate, or what sort of experience that they saw within the personal statement makes them more understanding of what the subject involves, not only at sort of the university level but beyond, in terms of, in this case, sort of the soft skills required of a medic. So lastly, I think we'll talk about how to introduce relevant extracurricular experience. So from a student who'd like to study philosophy at university, not only do they show that they've gone beyond and outside of the classroom to listen to podcasts about philosophy, but also that they can give their own personal opinion and give their own judgment as to what they think about the subject, and not, again, simply just have the ability to sort of listen and regurgitate that information, but also that they've thought critically about the subject they'd like to study as well. So in this instance, a student says that he questioned this particular author on whether the author felt Singer's ethics were compatible with modern humanism. So really showing an advance, really demonstrating without saying explicitly, I know a lot about this subject, really showing implicitly that they do so and that they can also critically engage with that subject. Cool, so I think that's all. Do you have any questions, given the other 3 examples that I've gone through?
A bit sleepy this morning.
Yeah, a bit sleepy. It's an early start. As I said before, feel free to email us if you do have any questions about the university application process or the summer programs that we offer. Or if perhaps you've been a little bit shy this morning, feel free to come up to me at the end and talk about what you'd like to study at university and any questions that you have as well.
Thank you very much. Just give a round of applause, please. Thank you.